Morning, Gary. How are you?
Outstanding. Let's jump into some recruiting chatter, and let's start with this big story. I guess I call him Brandon Kaho, but I guess he's going by, is that Ale or Ali Kaho or whatever now?
Let's just stick with Brandon.
Yeah, let's stick with Brandon Kaho. That's what he was known during the recruiting process. Regardless, he's a former 5-star recruit that chose Washington over Alabama during the last recruiting cycle. Went to Seattle this summer. I don't think he ever even enrolled in school. Regardless, he got a full release from the University of Washington. He is now back on the recruiting market and eligible to sign with any team that he chooses that wants him, and will be eligible to play in 2018, which makes this a very unusual scenario for a player of this caliber. We don't see that often. Alabama is in the mix. In fact, Bone, there are people who are saying that Alabama is where he's going to wind up. Give us the latest, and what huge impact could he potentially have on this Alabama defense this year if he chooses to land in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation with Brandon Kaho. He visited Alabama last football season, took an official visit to Alabama, and had made a couple trips to Tuscaloosa, and a lot of people thought that Alabama may be the place that he ended up a year ago, and then decided to stay a little bit closer to home. He's from Reno, so he ended up committing to Washington, signing with Washington, and it seemed like there was some there was death in his family here recently, and looked like he wanted to stay a little bit closer to home. Didn't feel like he wanted to go to Washington anymore, but now it seems like Alabama's the destination, which is kind of shocking, just because of just what he said about staying a little bit closer to home. But now I think with Alabama kind of entering the picture and still recruiting him and still having a spot available, need, of course, at a big position of need. I mean, this could be an absolute blessing to Alabama, because inside linebackers is just such a critical position for them. I mean, there's just low numbers there. So if they were able to get him, that's going to be huge for them. And as of right now, it's looking that way. I mean, as of late last night, just speaking to a few of my contacts, speaking to some people on the West Coast, it seemed like Alabama's in pretty good shape. Now, could we hear something today? Possibly. But we may not hear anything for a few more days or a week from now. It could be a little while, but wouldn't be surprised if we heard something relatively soon. And we're definitely keeping a very close eye on it. A lot of people ask, well, how does this affect the numbers? Well, it doesn't really affect the numbers that much, just because Alabama has spots available. There's still a couple spots that are still out there, and Alabama did not sign a full class in 2018, so there is a scholarship available from the 2018 class. Now, could this affect the 2019 class? Because all we've talked about for the last 6-7 months has been Alabama's plan to take 28 commitments in this year's recruiting class. Now, I still think that number's probably accurate. We'll still probably see 28. Now, the numbers may change at inside linebacker. Alabama has kind of been pressing for maybe 3 inside linebackers in this year's class. They do have one right now in Shane Lee. Now they may be pretty comfortable just taking one more inside linebacker instead of taking 2 more linebackers. Now, I think if they got 2 more inside linebackers, 2 guys that they really wanted, I think they would take them. But they're not just going to go out and just take anybody. That they would definitely like to take one really, really good inside linebacker, someone like a Nakobe Dean or a Henry Tolatola out of California. But if they're not necessarily going to make 2 inside linebackers a top priority. If they got Brandon Kaho.
Yeah, you've already alluded to this. I think Alabama, you could put up Mac Wilson and Dylan Moses against anybody and say that's as good a duo of inside linebackers as there's in the country. But as you said, behind that, there's some concern. There's no other way around it. There is some concern. And here's an opportunity for a young man who's highly touted. Now, he'll be completely inexperienced at this level, but it sounds to me like you believe that if he does come to Alabama, that he's got a chance to be plugged in and play right away.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is just depth-wise. I mean, there's just no depth right now. I mean, we've been seeing just about every single day Alabama plugging in new players, moving an outside guy to inside, and outside guys to our inside guys to outside, just because they're trying to figure out who are the best players equipped to play that inside linebacker position. And of course, you can't afford an injury. I mean, if Alabama has somebody go down, I mean, it's going to be devastating to them. And we saw that last year. We saw so many injuries last year, but there was a little bit more depth last year than there is this year. This year, the coverage is pretty bare, and that's why inside linebackers is such a big priority for Alabama in this year's class. But to get somebody, if they can get somebody like him on campus, provide some depth, and just kind of help the team out, I mean, that would certainly help them out, not only this year, but in the future as well, because, you're going to lose Mack Wilson after this year. You'll still have Dylan Moses, and you'll still have some of the other guys, but, depth-wise, then you bring in, let's say you bring in Brandon Kaho this year, then you'll have Shane Lee, then you may have a Nakobe Dean or a Henry Tolatola or someone else that's coming in from this 2019 class to really help your inside linebacker position for the future.
Bone, nobody is perfect, even Alabama, when it comes to recruiting, and I wanted to get your thoughts on a decision that was made that has bitten Alabama in the rear end a little bit. Alabama a couple years ago could have had Monty Rice, the linebacker out of James Clemens High School, and he committed to LSU, wound up signing with Georgia when Kirby Smart went there. Alabama, Jeremy Pruitt wanted Vandarius Cowan. Alabama signed Vandarius Cowan. Never worked out. Never, ever worked out. You could see this one coming a mile away. He just never, for whatever reason, got on board. And now you've got Monty Rice at Georgia, who looks like he's got a potential to make 100 tackles this year. So I know it's hindsight, water under the bridge, but that's a do-over that Alabama probably would take in a second, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, every single year there's going to be prospects that you pass on, that you decide to go after someone else instead, and you're hoping that it works one way or the other. Now, Vandarius Cowan, I mean, he was certainly he was a high level kid in high school. I mean, and there were some issues with him in high school. I mean, he ended up getting kicked off his high school team when he was a senior, and there was some talk of possibly parting ways with him, but Alabama kind of stuck with him, and kind of gave him a few more chances, and they were pretty. They seemed like they were pretty excited about him, but they ended up keeping him on board. Of course, Alabama had a big linebacker class in that 2017 group. I mean, you had Markel Benton, you had Dylan Moses, you had Chris Allen. So you had a lot of linebackers that were already in the recruiting class, and then Vandarius Cowan. So it didn't work out for Alabama there, but yeah, I mean, passing up on a guy like Monty Rice, and they've actually passed up on some in-state guys who have had a lot of success elsewhere in the past for different players. And I couldn't name them all, but I know that they passed on some in-state guys in the past few years, and taking some out-of-state guys instead that have panned out pretty well. But that was certainly one that they probably wish they could look back and say, "Hey, we want to take Monty Rice instead." And obviously, he would have been a great player in Tuscaloosa.
Wrapping up on Kaho, is your prediction Alabama then?
Yes, it is my prediction. It's funny how quickly things change. Yesterday morning, when we started talking about him a little bit on our website on BamaInsider.com, I said, well, Alabama had not spoken with him yet. They weren't sure the direction he was going to go or what was going to happen. And then you see the reports on he wanted to be a little bit closer to home, so you weren't really sure how much of a factor Alabama was going to be in it. And then late afternoon, early evening, started hearing a lot of positive buzz about it. And then around 10 o'clock last night, heard from a pretty solid source that it was looking like it was heading that direction, and it looked pretty solid. So yeah, as of right now, I would say Alabama for Kaho, and keep a close eye on it over the next couple of days, see what happens.
Back to the 2019 class, Bone. Commitment watch for us. Anybody close to pulling the trigger for the Crimson Tide? Anybody watching?
Well, there's always some guys I'm watching. Dax Hill, the five-star safety we've talked about several times. Commitment could come at any moment. I mean, he could make a decision this month. He can make a decision next month. I think it's going to come before October. I'd be surprised if he doesn't commit before October 1st. He does have an official visit set for Michigan in mid-September, so I'm sure Alabama's probably a little bit worried about that because he's already taken his official to Alabama. But, of course, Alabama would love to get him in for maybe a game on an unofficial visit. But another kid to keep an eye on, Jaquez Sorrell, four-star defensive lineman out of Largo High School in Florida. He does have a committable offer from Alabama. Visited for the cookout a couple weeks ago. Was going to commit on August the 27th. Now, long time it's looked like South Carolina's been the leader. He hasn't really talked much since the visit to Alabama a couple weeks ago. So we're really keeping a close eye on him. It could be between Alabama and South Carolina for him. So watching that one pretty closely. And of course, Trey Sanders, five-star running back out of IMG Academy. I've said for a while he could commit, 5 minutes from now, or he could commit in December. It's just, I think it's just whenever he feels like it's the right time for him. But I do feel pretty confident he's going to end up picking Alabama.
Andrew Bone with us, recruiting reporter for BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals Network. Darnell Wright, the big offensive tackle out of Huntington, West Virginia, it sure has seemed like throughout this process that Alabama, at least to me, it has been the leader. But now, I'm hearing Tennessee has really made a big move, and some folks that follow the Vols think they're going to wind up getting Darnell Wright. What's the latest on him?
Well, the latest on him is he had a great unofficial visit to Alabama a couple weeks ago. Came down to Tuscaloosa with his mom, was also down there with a few coaches, and had a great visit. I mean, it was something that he wanted his mom to see and let her kind of be the judge of everything, since he had visited Ohio State and Tennessee. Now, I do think that Tennessee had gained a lot of momentum prior to that trip to Alabama. I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. I think Alabama's in good shape with him. Still a long way to go. He's not going to decide until probably December. And I think he's going to announce. Actually, I think he's going to announce at one of the All-American games. So I think he'll commit prior to an All-American game. But when he gets to an All-American game, he'll announce that decision there. But I really like Alabama's chances with him now. Yes, Tennessee, Ohio State, still very much in the picture. I think he'll end up choosing between Alabama and Tennessee. But as of right now, if I had to pick his top school where I think he would sign if signing day were today, I would pick Alabama.
Finally, as far as the 2019 commitments are concerned, we always know that there's a chance that one or two of these guys that are committed now won't wind up in the class. There's been a lot of speculation about Brandon Turnage, the athlete out of Oxford, Mississippi, flipping to Ole Miss. But when you look on the list, Turnage is still committed to Alabama. Is this a foregone conclusion that he will eventually not be part of this class, or do you think there's a chance he winds up sticking with Alabama?
6 months ago, I would have said 100% he was going elsewhere. Now I'm about 95% he's going to stick with Alabama. I mean, he's just continued to make trips to Tuscaloosa. Alabama's pressing hard to keep him. He visited 3 times during the summer. The Alabama staff loves this kid. I mean, they really want to keep him on board. Now. Yeah, absolutely. Ole Miss is in the picture. There's some other schools that are in the mix that he wants to visit, including Georgia. I think he wants to get down to Florida and LSU, and Mississippi State sort of in there as well. But obviously the biggest concern being in Oxford, Mississippi, would be Ole Miss. But we had a guy over at his high school just last week, spent some time with him, interviewed him, and it seemed like he was very solid with his commitment to Alabama. He's going to continue to take some visits, and I think one of the biggest concerns with him is that he's going to, as of right now, he wants to wait and sign in February as opposed to signing in December. I think that will probably change once we kind of get closer to December, because Alabama's really going to push for all of their guys that are currently committed to go ahead and sign in December, because you don't want what happened last year with guys who ended up signing elsewhere. We saw that last year with Vernon Jackson. We saw that with Bobby Brown. So they don't want something like that to happen this year, and I think they'll really push hard for him to go ahead and sign. Now, we probably see a guy like Rashad Cheney, start looking elsewhere. He didn't make the last two cookouts, so we'll see what kind of happens with him this football season.
All right, great stuff as always from Andrew Bone from BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals Network. Bone, give the listeners the scoop on how they can follow you and get all your recruiting updates.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Please follow us at BamaInsider.com, which is part of the Rivals.com network. I know we got several specials heading into the football season, so you can get on there for pretty cheap right now to follow all of our work, and also follow me on my Twitter handle at Andrew J. Bone, and follow our BamaInsider.com YouTube channel as well.
Appreciate it, Bone.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Have a good one.